usage.
Okay.
Hello, and welcome to Talk to Stu Live with me, Stuart Magoo, and I'm joined in the studio this evening by Becky.
Hello!
And hopefully you can hear her.
And Pog. Pog's here too.
Pog's here too, though we haven't set up the Pog cam as yet, although that may be something that comes soon. And I'm joined in the studio this evening by Becky.
Hello! Bit of reverb going on there, sorry. Thanks!
Technical difficulties. So, where would we be without a bit of that? Right, where was I? So, yes, we're live. I've got Becky with me and Pog, and of course the Duke of Nuke is in the chat as the moderator this evening, so he'll be making sure that all your questions get picked out and sent through to Becky for her to then tell me, and then I will answer them. That's how it works. Very simple. And as always, just the first bit of housekeeping, which is try and keep it civil if you're in the chat. Most of you in the chat that I can see so far are our regulars, so big shout out to all of you guys, Rob McCallan, Edward Brown, Cheekster, Sarah Brown as well. I suspect John Huggs is in there somewhere.
Haven't seen him yet.
And also saw Brian, Michael Moreland as well, so welcome everybody. And yes, so as always, I'll start off with sort of a bit of news, I suppose, or just talking on current events, really. The main thing that I'm being asked a lot at the moment is, what's going to happen with this general election going on? Is it going to lead to a lot of changes from when we move from one government to the other? Are we going to see changes to the way the DWP handles things, and what's it going to mean for the future for us? This is a bit of a difficult question. So first of all, I'm not telling anybody which way to vote. I always think you should vote with your conscience. What the polls are currently saying is that it's very unlikely that the Conservatives will be successful in this particular general election, and they are more than likely going to be changing places with Labour. What that means, most pollsters are saying what that means is that people can pretty much vote for who they want to vote for. So if you're in an area where Lib Dems were getting or Greens were getting, and you want to vote for them as a protest vote or tactical voting or whatever, that's entirely up to you. If you want to vote for one of the fringe parties, that's up to you as well. It's probably not going to affect the outcome too much. We are seeing even some of the safer seats are challenged. So generally speaking, we're probably going to be seeing a change of government, but is that going to lead to a change of policy? Well, there was an interesting article today in the Disability News service, which I've just flashed up on the screen here. And if I just pop over to Safari so I can scroll it up, there we go. So as you can see on here, progress continues on key parts of Conservative disability benefit reforms despite the election. So what this article is basically saying is that the green paper that...
No, darling.
Sorry, we've got a cat jumping on the table trying to destroy everything. Everything that we've worked so hard for. So apologies.
Poggy, go away. Come on my lap.
Yes. So the green paper and consultation, which includes options for making it harder for people to claim personal independence payment and even replacing cash payments with vouchers or one-off grants, is due to close on the 22nd of July. That will be continuing. The call for evidence on footnote reform will be continuing as well, and that closes on the 8th of July. Now, there have been suggestions that the consultation and call for evidence would now have to be abandoned because of the election. That is not correct. So if you've heard that anywhere, that's not true. The civil service guidance states clearly that ongoing consultation should continue as normal, and adds during the election period departments may continue to receive and analyse responses with a view to putting the proposals to the incoming government, but they should not make any statement or generate publicity during this period. So there was little certainties on other key policies this week as well. So recent months there's been announcements to increase the speed at which people are moved from employment support allowance over to universal credit, which is now due to begin in September. There are plans to tighten the work capability assessment from next year, and medium-term proposals to scrap the WCA. Now, the important thing with all of this, really, that you need to remember is that this DWP is primarily run by the civil service, and the civil service has lots of top people in place who will remain in place whether there is a change of government, and in quite a lot of respects they act on their own steam, so to speak. Many of the proposals that the government puts forward when they're in power are either developed from the civil service or from think tanks, or civil service and think tanks working together. There's a lot of reasons why these things are developed in that way. So it doesn't mean that if there's a change in government that there will necessarily be a change in policy. There might be some tinkering at the edges with certain policies, but probably things are going to move forward as is planned at the moment in a similar way to what they are. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no hope at all if there is a change in government, because the Labour Party is quite strongly influenced by the unions, and the unions, generally speaking, do all have disability representation embedded in them. Now, the Trade Union Congress, the TUC, happened very recently, where they were debating and voting on the inclusion of a new disability manifesto into their kind of guiding proposals, which will hopefully shape how unions approach things. This was voted down at this stage. Now, the disability campaigners who put this forward were obviously quite angry and upset about it. But the reason it was voted down wasn't so much a case of we're not going to do that. It was a case of them, the TUC requesting a lot more detail on certain areas and more information about how this was going to be funded, and for things to be very specific. It being voted down was quite narrow, so it was 64 to 52, something like that, the vote. So it could shift in the other direction quite easily. The majority of the things that were being opposed in it were more to do with education and how children are dealt with in the educational system, generally speaking, whether we should have segregated schools or not, and things like that. So there's a bit of tinkering that needs to go on with that manifesto, but broadly speaking, the majority of the unions have said that they are going to continue to pressure the Labour Party to improve things for disabled people generally. So if the Labour Party does take power, which we think they will, then there will be more pressure applied to them, and they will be more responsive to that pressure than the Conservative Party, who have pretty much nothing to do with any kind of union apart from the National Farmers Union, and a couple of others that you probably won't have heard of because they're not really unions. So that's what's going on in that sense. So that's quite interesting, I think. I don't think there's no hope in terms of our parliament or the next parliament, but the Labour Party themselves have been quite quiet on the disability side of things and the benefits side of things, and they continue to, at the moment, parrot the sort of conservative work is the best thing for everybody. The likelihood is they're probably going to approach that in a more realistic way, and as I say, they're going to be a little bit more open to listening to consultations and people. Now, additionally, alongside all of this, the EHCR or ECHR, I'm not very good with acronyms, a bit dyslexic, the human rights investigation into the way disabled people are being treated is going ahead. However, this is also a bit of a bone of contention as well, because the EHCR are only going back to 2019 in the way the DWP have treated disabled people, and they're only taking submissions from organisations that represent disabled people, not individual disabled people themselves. I can understand that, although it is frustrating for a lot of people. I can understand it because it needs to be kind of filtered to a certain extent, because if we were to say, right, everybody should get involved in that consultation, there would just be millions, and I do mean millions, of stories of people being abominably treated by the DWP, and they would go back much further than 2019. But what I would do is, if you want to try and get involved in that, if you have a specific kind of condition that causes your disability, and there is a charitable organisation that represents you, then or that condition, then maybe getting in touch with them and see if they've got anything that they're submitting to this. Also look out for disabled campaigns, disability organisation campaigns as well. As always, I recommend keeping your eye on the Disability News Service website, which is what's it called? The web address, disabilitynewsservice.com. That's nice and easy. So yes, I'll just see if I can pop that in the chat. disabilitynewsservice.com. I thought I popped it in the chat. Yes, there it is. It's just popped up. Okay, so that's my kind of political view on the thing. As I say, I'm not really pushing people to vote one way or the other. That's not what I'm here to do on this channel. Obviously, people know I'm a little bit to the left, putting it mildly. But yes, let's have a look at some questions then. So, what do we have?
Lovely. Okay, we've got a few so far. So, our very first question, bear with me. We've had a couple of lovely donations as well from Joanne and Edward, which is very kind of you. Thank you guys so much.
You.
Really kind. And really cool cartoons to go with them as well. You'll have to have a look afterwards. They're really sweet. Brian, I received old style ESA and housing benefit. I have read that we will be migrating to UC this year instead of 28 to 29. Mm-hmm. I have read and heard different opinions on this. What do you think will happen?
Well, I did slightly touch on that in what I was just saying. So if you didn't catch that, Brian, I'll just go over it again. So basically, from July this year, they will be increasing the speed at which they move people from the legacy benefits over onto universal credit. That's the proposal, and they will be particularly focusing on people on employment support allowance from September onwards. Now, originally it was set to happen by 28-29, but they have this year put a lot more, well, last year, I think it was October last year, they put a lot more money towards the DWP for them to employ more staff to do this sort of thing. That sort of employment drive pretty much came to an end around, well, it's still going on, but they got the hub of people employed by sort of end of April, really, and they've started training up those staff and so on. So we'll see that people are in place to do that from September onwards, but it could be that you could be asked to migrate at any point, so that could happen right now. The migration for people to move over has been happening all the time anyway. There is the thing called natural migration, which happens when your circumstances change. Forced migration has been going on as well, but it tends to be quite sort of area specific, and basically they will be, as I say, ramping things up from July onwards, so don't be surprised if that happens. As I say to everybody, as soon as you're contacted, whether you're on employment support allowance, job seekers allowance, working tax credits, whatever it is that you're on, as soon as you're contacted about that and you receive that letter, you must move very quickly to make sure that that application is started off and in process. 2 reasons for that is, one, you could lose out on your benefit altogether, and secondly, it will also mean that you get transitional protection. Now, transitional protection isn't that great. Over time you will see money gets less, and if your circumstances change, which they will at some point, and it could be a really minor thing, might not be a change in your circumstances in terms of your health condition or anything like that. It could just be you change your address or something, just, well, maybe not change of address, but whatever your change of circumstances is that comes up, it can affect the payments that you receive, and you can lose the transitional payment. So yes, that's something to be aware of. The transitional payment will basically give you what you're receiving now, but it's not linked to inflationary increases as well, so that kind of goes up and down every once in a while, but it's not linked to that, so when it goes up, it won't go up with you with inflation. So your transitional amount must stay the same, but everything else will increase. So over time you see it getting less and less anyway, but as soon as that change of circumstance happens, I don't know why I can't think of one right now, what the sort of thing would be, but when it comes up, they'll take it away then too. But nonetheless, if you get that transitional protection, then that will keep your payments at about the same level for the time being. So it's important that you act very quickly on that. So yeah, look out for that soon.
More questions are coming in. Oh, Joanne has said, thank you very much for posting the work capability assessment videos. They were very helpful in filing mine. Edward has just given a donation as well, Edward Brown, which is
thank
lovely.
you, Edward.
And a new beautiful cartoon. English Rose has said, I've never seen you smile. You should do it more often. It's a very nice smile. So I promised I'd make you laugh. But I didn't need to do anything.
Okay.
It's a beautiful smile, it's true.
Do I not smile that much? Well, I suppose
they are quite serious topics, to be fair.
Yeah,
we do have a bit of a giggle, but yeah, they are. And more from
Has Edward donated twice?
He has, yeah. The second was from Sarah. That's why.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
But,
that's really kind.
I really do appreciate it, but you guys really support the channel so much as well anyway, so, but...
exactly.
Yes, that is very kind. I do have some good news about these sort of things towards the end of the show as well, but we'll come back to that. So, next question.
Just very quickly, before we move on, someone had posted a comment, which I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt. Get what I'm saying there? And I thought, oh, okay. And then I decided, no, I think we need to remove that. So if it was unintentionally misread by any of us, then apologies to that person. If not, then I hope we give you some food for thought with our wonderful community of people that we support. Okay, so David Cook, hello Stu. If it goes ahead, when do you think that the PIP reforms will be put into place?
That's a really tricky question. That came up last time. It's really hard to calculate that. The way that I've been viewing it is sort of based on how long it takes a bill to go through Parliament, how long the consultation period will take as well, because although the actual consultation itself closes in the summer, there will still be a period of time where they need to collate all the information, put it all together, put it in a big pile, completely ignore it, do what they want. Did I say that? I didn't mean that. Get it all together, review it and see what it says, and then prepare their bill based on that information. And yeah, that then has to go through Parliament, and it depends on how that's challenged, when it's at the white paper status. So there are already, and this is the thing that's very confusing about it, because if that bill goes through in the kind of timeline that they set with it in the first place, it kind of contradicts the timeline that they set 6 months beforehand, back in April of 23, where they said they were kind of going to scrap the work capability assessment and make all those changes and link fitness to work to PIP. And they're also, of course, talking about scrapping sick notes, which they call fit notes now, and getting the work coaches to decide on your fitness to work. So it's a very confusing system that's being proposed, and one kind of contradicts the other, because if they make these big changes to PIP that they're talking about, then how are they going to decide whether someone's fit to work or not, and all of these things. So they've kind of created a bit of a pile of spaghetti with this. So realistically, I would imagine that this will get straightened out by the next government, probably within the first 2 to 3 years of them being in post, and then we'll see from that. As I say, the civil service are pretty much in control of all of that with the DWP, so they've probably got quite a lot prepared already. They would have been looking into doing this for quite a few years before even making it public, so it could be anything from as little as 2 years to 5 years. So we'll see, basically.
We've got a great question from Karen Campbell. Would being changed from PIP to ADP stop your transitional payment when you cross from ESA to UC? I should have said I'm still waiting to be transferred from ESA to UC.
That's a good question.
That's what Jane Dunn literally just said. Good question.
Yeah, if the plan's to trip me up.
We've got another smile.
Yeah. That's a tricky one. Essentially, one should not affect the other really, but it depends on whether or not you have disability premiums linked to that are then factored into your transitional amount. Because if the change from PIP to ADP is just a straight change, then there shouldn't be any problem. But if you're having to go through reassessment, then there very well could be. So it would depend a little bit on your particular case. What I would say is, certainly if you're going over onto ADP, that probably means you live in Scotland. So I would definitely seek out support and advice on that from whoever is local to you that can provide that sort of support. The CAB is the main place to go around this area, and then there's a bit more local authority funding towards kind of disability advice and support in Scotland than there is in England. But whether that applies to your area or not, I know in Glasgow, for example, there's a lot of different organisations, but as you get sort of further north or further west, there's fewer. So shop around, use the Turn to Us advice finder. The link for that should be in the description of this, I think. But yeah, find advice on that one, I would say, because I don't have a lot of dealings with ADP. Certainly, as I say, if you've got disability premiums linked to ESA, and then that's carried over with your migration to universal credit, then in the transitional payment, and you switch, then it very well could be affected, yes.
The lovely Rob has said that you're looking much healthier than you have done in a long time, so that's nice. It's maybe it's all these cheeky little smiles he's got going on. And he'd like to know, please, what are your thoughts about the benefits screw up this week? I can't say that, sorry. It's not. I just don't know why I couldn't say it. I've had a bit of a day. What are your thoughts about the benefits screw up this week? And do you really think they will make sure people's finances aren't messed up by it?
Not entirely sure what the screw up is that you're referring to. That's partly because there are so many screw ups. I'm just quickly going on Google to see if I can find what you're talking about. Is this the one-off £812 payment that's been talked about? Reject all. No, that's just the payday loan rubbish. Yes, don't get a universal credit loan unless you absolutely have to. No, can't see anything about that popping up. So,
Rob, if you can school us, that would be good, and then we'll have a little discussion about that. Cheekster777, old style ESA is being scrapped, yet DWP sent me an SMS saying they have received my ESA assessment and will contact me once they've made a decision. I'm currently on universal credit and PIP in recent months. And as just said, I'm really surprised they're still considering adding to people to ESA in 2024.
Yeah, well, if it's going through the process, then I'm going to. Sorry, just have to have a cough. Sorry about that, folks. If it's still in process, then they'll follow it through to the end of the process. So I'm assuming that if you're on universal credit, that you shouldn't also be on ESA, and that the work capability assessment that you've had is under universal credit, not under ESA. But do correct me, because if you've got two going on at the same time, that seems odd. Child benefit delay, due out on Monday but not happening until Wednesday. That's quite a common one, to be honest. This sort of tends to happen just after the bank holiday quite often. So what happens on the computer system is they bind over certain payments, either preventing them going out on the Monday, so the following Monday of the week, if somebody's not switched it off on their particular on their particular system, if they've not switched it off, then those payments won't go out. So there's a bit of a cock up on that part. I have to say, it's one of those cock ups that is kind of easily done, really. Not that it should happen, but generally speaking, the DWP computer systems are a little bit behind the times compared to anything that we'll interact with on the web. They're probably basing their automation on old systems rather than sort of new things like Power Automate and whatnot. So it's it is what it is. But yeah, that sort of stuff happens a lot, and it's happened before with different payments just after the bank holiday. So yeah, that's one of those things.
Okie dokie. I'm just having a little look into the chat. And Edward, I'll have a look into this once I've asked you a new question. Mary Hemphill. I've been on contributory ESA. I really can't speak today. Contributory. I've been on contributory ESA for 7 years. I was moved into the support group. I receive no income-related benefits due to my partner's income. Can you advise if I was to receive a substantial monetary gift from a family member outside of the UK, would this impact my ESA? Thank you.
Yes, it would. Okay. So even though you're on contributory ESA, you still are subject to certain capital issues, let's say. So you first of all, you must inform them, even if and let them make the decision. That's what I always say. So if you're not sure, just let them know. It depends on how substantial that gift is to whether or not it precludes you from claiming altogether. But generally, if it's over 16,000, you must let them know immediately. Okay. It may well be that they come back to you and say, that's absolutely fine. You can carry on as it's brain fog. As it's disregarded for some reason, but the disregarded capital elements of it are, there's many of them. It might also be that with contributory ESA that doesn't matter so much, but generally speaking, you should inform them regardless.
Okay, I'm just trying to sort out a link issue with Edward. Edward tried to post the link, and as we know before, it's been difficult for chat members to post links, so we tried to get around it by fooling the bots by putting spaces in, but it seems to have picked up on that, and I can't see that attempt at all on the screen. So I'm just trying to sort that at the same time as looking at the question. So
well, Edward, I think you've got my email. So if
you
can
pop
ping
it in
to
as
my
an email.
it'll
Lovely.
come up on the screen.
So, Stu, Edward has added it to the Padlet that he's created. Appropriate support, information and advice.
I can't remember how to access that.
That's okay.
That ages ago.
We're both a bit brain foggy today.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Rob says, do you think that they're going to I really can't speak. Recompense people that incur bank charges
for
the mess ups, I suppose, with the payments?
Yes, it's possible that they will do. It's possible that they will do, depending on the level of the problem that it's caused for those people. They won't always recompense people for that. It will be judged on a case-by-case basis, usually. Now, it might be because it's been made public that they decide to do that just to save a bit of face at the moment. That's a possibility. But the difficulty is what you may have to do is raise a complaint directly with that department. Now, there is a way of raising a complaint, depending on what you need to do. So I'm just getting up a link to the complaints procedure, which I'm going to pop in the chat. So if you're not sure how to raise a complaint, follow this complaints procedure through here. I will be doing a video very soon on how to do a complaint to the DWP and what you should expect from that complaint. hopefully that will, if you are affected by that and you have lost any money, or if the loss of money has caused you to then get into trouble with other organisations, then that is something to have a look at and see if it's worth doing, because it is an error on their part and they should sort it out, basically.
Okay. June Gower, Stu, when do we see the increase in universal credit, as apparently it went up in April but still not received?
When will they see the what?
The increase in universal credit.
Well, you should have seen it already. A lot of people have. If there's anyone on the chat who also hasn't received it, let me know. I know I certainly received my PIP upgrade, and I know of a couple of other people whose universal credit went up. Yeah. So it should go through as soon as, but it's also worth checking in your universal credit account. If you haven't done that already, you may already have done that, but have a check with the in your payments history to see if there's been any adjustments to the payments, because quite often they give it with one hand and take it away with another. Which we've seen, with the increase in pensions with the triple lock, it didn't affect the tax. So although the pension went up, the tax didn't adjust.
Joanne still hasn't either.
No. Okay. Well, it should have gone through by the end of May, depending on when your payment cycle. So that's another thing.
Danny Lyons has said that those who have not received the rise will get it this month.
Yeah, so Ian Dawkins has just put that he got his increase on May 21st. So what you have to bear in mind with universal credit is they have an assessment period, which is the month before. So when they say the payment goes up in April, not everybody will have received it until usually probably end of May, mid-June, depending on when the payments assessment period falls. So that's a big issue with it as well. But also go into your, if you haven't done so, go into your universal credit account and check under payments to see if there's been any other adjustments in your payment that might have affected the overall amount. So it might have gone up in one area and down in another. So that's another thing to check. But yeah, so yeah, it should have gone through by the end of this month.
I've had a question from John Witt.
John Wick.
Which reminds me of one of the coolest characters known to mankind, John Wick. Who we love because he loves dogs. Yes. John Witt, I hope you love dogs too. Hi Stu. Are the DWP trying to stop people's awards before they reach retirement age, as some are suggesting?
PIP awards?
People's awards, the DWP trying to stop people's awards before they reach retirement age. I don't know, it's not specified.
So yeah, I think generally the DWP try to stop everybody from getting PIP if they can, but certainly it's if you're quite close to retirement age, it's important that you if you have got mobility issues, that they are recognised through PIP and that is taken on, because if you pass retirement age and you aren't successful with PIP, then you apply for attendance allowance and there is no mobility component in that. Once you've passed retirement age, if you have PIP, your mobility component won't ever change if you're reassessed. So it won't go up. It could go down, that is the way it could change, so they could take it away, and somehow as you got older your legs got better, maybe they'll say, and they'll
yes,
take
PIP.
it away. Yeah, with the way it's sort of done is we can be cynical and say, well, people who are applying for PIP around that age do get turned down more, or they get turned down for the mobility component more. It's hard to say that that's really true, because to my mind, everybody gets turned down in sort of the same way. So I don't think people near that age group are being specifically targeted, but I wouldn't put it past them if they were. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But the thing is if you do get turned down for it, or if you, get turned down for the mobility component and you have got mobility issues, then you must mandatory reconsideration and then appeal. Don't let it go, because if it goes, then the next time it's going to be much harder. Or if you've passed pension age, then you won't be able to apply for that element. You'll get the similar payment from attendance allowance, and probably even I think it's about the same with attendance allowance, the care component. It's assessed in a different way, attendance allowance, so it's a bit easier on that side of things. But yeah, that's what I would say. And I spotted there was a question in there earlier from a chap called Kev.
Yeah, Kate, is there any truth that PIP is cancelling existing claims on review for people nearing retirement age? I've heard this is going on. That was from Kay.
Yeah, there was a Kev12364. Do you think there'd be any changes to PIP? So it's a similar question. Yeah, so did that answer your question as well, Kev12364?
I've not seen Kev's question. I'm wondering if my...
It's further up. Just under Brian saying, not all disabilities are visible.
That's probably when I was having my funny turn.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yes, I'm so sorry, Kev. Yeah.
Come on, Duke, pay attention as well.
No, it's me.
Chop, chop.
Oh.
Rob, sorry for bashing on about it, but it's so easy.
It's not bashing on.
It's
You're
not.
great, Rob.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do.
Exactly.
When is PIP stopping? Nutty, we chatted about this earlier. We don't really know if it is going to stop or when it's going to stop, but we're thinking 2 to 5 years during the next government will be the case, if it does. But there's a lot of conflicting things as to what's going to be there. So Edward is saying he shared a link.
I can't see the link, but Edward says it is there, but I can't see a link at all on the chat personally. I don't know whether Edward has sent it to you.
We can't take links on the chat, unfortunately. So if you've got a link, please pop it in an email. Yeah,
it might show on your history, but it's definitely not showing on my view, unfortunately. I'm so sorry, Edward. We have got another question from WHU58. Hi Stu, is it legally possible to claim pension credit whilst letting out a room under the HMRC Rent a Room scheme?
Okay. That's a good question. So, HMRC rent.
I think that would be something that you need to look up on the gov.uk website, potentially.
Yes, so it will be a form of income even though you're not having to pay tax on it. So it will affect your eligibility for pension credit if it's increasing your earnings over and above the allowable amount per month. So I think that's around 200 and... What's the pension credit amount? Let me find that out to be exact. Pension credit amount. So if you have earnings over that takes your pension and anything else over £218.15 if you're single, or £332.95 if you have a partner. So if it goes over that amount, then yes, you won't be entitled to guarantee pension credit. You may be entitled to the savings element of pension credit, but that is being phased out, so it may be that you when they do get around to that you won't be. But any changes like that, if you just anything, report it straight away. Any change in circumstances, even if I don't know, you grow an extra eyebrow in the middle of your forehead, just tell them. And if they're like, well, you're wasting our time, just tell them.
And then you'd also look like Frida Kahlo, and she's amazing. So
Yeah. No, I mean like here, not here.
that'll be all right too. Keep your face warm. It's okay. Start a new fashion.
Do like me and do it like
just do a comb back. Yeah.
Backwards comb over.
I could actually stick my fringe to it, and then it would stay in place all day rather than blowing up like some strange kind of hair shelf. That would be good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
back to the questions.
Yes.
And Edward, it definitely isn't there on my screen. I've looked for Bitly. I've looked for a link. I think it might be showing on your end, but it's definitely not here. So it would need to be emailed to Stu, and Stu's just popped his email address into the chat for you. If you can pop him that there, then he can paste that in. Okay, so let me just scroll back up. Hi, WHU58. Hi Stu, question. Is it legally possible? No, I've just done that one.
below.
Ghost 666 Recon, another good name. Duke would like that name.
He would, yeah.
Do you get LCWRA backdated to the date you should have got it 10 months after Tribunal?
You should do. So, yeah, it should go back to the 10 months. So, if it should go back to the date that you originally applied for it. But I have heard a lot of people being stiffed on this area. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so it's a tricky one, but yes, it should go back to any benefit that you apply for. The date that you apply for it is the start date of your benefit. So if you're turned down at that point, then it should get backdated. However, with employment support allowance, what we've been seeing quite often is the work capability assessment part of it, where, if this is what you're talking about, where that, why has that come up on the screen? If that happens after the fact, then people are finding that isn't being backdated. But again, you can challenge that, you can appeal that, and I would suggest going and finding support with that one, so that they can look over your case, see what rate you've been awarded and when that is from, and whether they can challenge that for you if you don't get the right amount. But if it is, yeah, so I'm assuming you're talking about the work capability.
They were awarded after their tribunal in May 2024, but it was about 10 months from the medical report, and that's why they wanted to know if it would be backdated.
Yeah, it should be, in theory, but if it isn't, that is something that you will need to challenge, really, to find out why. Okay, email has been sent. Better Together benefits, here we go.
Yay! Edward, it's coming on, and Edward, I like a monobrow.
Right, here we go. So, for everybody who wants, so Edward, sorry, I've just seen his thing saying Sarah calls it a monobrow. So if people would like a good resource, Edward adds to this. It helps with PIP and with all sorts of things as well. Good written resources to support you with your benefits, then you can find them here. This is a virus-free link, so you are safe to click on it. It is a shortened link. So yeah, have a look at his bits and bobs. They are very useful. I've looked through them before.
John Lane, Yvonne, Jolly and Kitty Bell, I will come to your questions shortly. Thank you for those. Just really quickly, Cheekster777 was awarded LCWRA, but it was only backdated to 3 months after the application form was submitted. So yeah, it sounds like it's very much sort of on an ad hoc case by case basis?
It is. They're just chancing their arm with it lately, because it always used to be backdated, and it is something that I think, generally speaking, if you can challenge it, then please do look further up in the chat where I posted the link about how to make a complaint first of all, and when you get a decision letter, if it tells you what they're going to pay you in that, then you should appeal that as much as possible, and again go and get one-to-one support with that. It is really the last 12 months where we've been sort of seeing that ESA claims are not being backdated, because they're claiming, well, whatever they're claiming. Yeah, don't know why. Don't know if you've got any experience of that, Edward, as well. If you want to throw in on that, please do.
Okay, so John Lane. Hi Stu, my wife has been awarded enhanced mobility and care for 5 years. Can the DWP just stop the award at any time?
Basically, yes. The problem with the when it says it's awarded for 5 years, that doesn't mean you will have it for 5 years. What that means is you won't be asked to be reassessed for 5 years. So that's what the 5-year time is. It doesn't mean that they can't change all of the rules and do something completely different if they choose to. So many people who were on disability living allowance and were told they had a lifetime award for that were obviously migrated over onto PIP, and then were told that they had to reapply in 3 years after that, and so on and so forth. So the in this particular game, the goalposts can be moved at any point in time, and indeed that's what this whole PIP consultation thing is about, to see if they remove the goalposts altogether and tell you that no, you're playing tennis instead. It's anybody's guess as to how that's going to go at the moment, but if they do what they're wanting to do, then we should be looking at a system such as vouchers or different kind of assessments being put in place to determine what a person needs and what they're allowed to spend their money on, things like that. So there's a number of different things being proposed, and when it comes into effect, they will just go ahead and do it.
Okay. Yvonne has said, hello Stuart, lovely to see you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Please can you advise me? My friend's daughter suffers with an eating disorder and only weighs 38 kilos, and she's been told to stop work. What would she be entitled to?
Eating disorders would definitely come under personal independence payments. So I would say serious eating disorders, it's possible that she could, depending on how it affects her, she could be looking at least 4 to possibly 8 points just on the question for eating food, and also possibly preparing meals. There are going to be other things as well under personal independence payment which are really important for her to look at, such as fatigue and how that affects her doing things like getting washed and dressed or moving around, those kind of things. So she should definitely apply for PIP. She's probably only going to receive a short award, particularly if she's under any form of treatment or therapy, so probably a 1, 2, 3 or 5 year award at the most, where they would want to reassess her. So I would get that application in as soon as possible. If she is signed off as unfit to work and she lives on her own, then she should certainly apply for universal credit, and looking at the either limited capability for work or limited capability for work related activity element. That should be the way to go with that, and if she's doing that now, she will probably have to go through a work capability assessment as well, If she is living with other people, then their income would also be taken into account. So the best thing to do in that situation would be to either go and see the CAB for a benefits check, or use the Turn to Us online benefits calculator to see if she would qualify for universal credit. But she will need to submit regular doctor's notes. So those are the two options there. So she should certainly apply for PIP. As I say, that's not means tested, so it doesn't matter whether you live with people or whether there's any income or anything like that. That's something to start with, I would say. The PIP process can take longer and it can be quite stressful, so do get support with that and filling out the form. There are eating disorder charities around the UK which do provide resources for personal independence payment. There's also another YouTuber called Charlie Anderson who does very detailed videos on personal independence payment. Plus, I have some videos on personal independence payment myself on the channel, so do have a look at those, and also have a little look at the link that
shameless plug
Edward posted, because he's got some tips on how to apply for PIP as well. But there's a lot of resources out there to support them with making that application. There we go.
Thank you. Kitty Bell, are you ready for another question?
Hi,
or do you need a
Kitty.
little Brent? Do you need...
I'll have a sip.
You should have said hello, Kitty. My brother bought me the most amazing little Hello Kitty purse from Japan. It's so cool. It's the evil bunny one. I can't remember what she's called, Koruto or something like that. But anyway, I digress. Sorry.
Okay.
Kitty Bell. Hi, Stu and Becky. Hello. On universal credit, is rental income from a second disregarded property deducted from universal calculation as it is with income support?
Yeah, so if the property itself is disregarded, that's fine. It doesn't mean so that's the capital that's within the property that's disregarded. So the asset itself is not a liquid asset. You can't access that cash, so it's disregarded. However, any income that's generated from that would not be disregarded if it's coming to you.
Okay. WUH58, hello again. Question.
Hey, woo.
Every time I go question, I just want to break into Destiny's Child. Question. Tell me what you think. Anyway, question. If you receive the full state pension at £221.20, is PIP £72.65 taxable if it takes you over your personal tax allowance?
No, but
I can't do that because it's maths.
so the way they did it. So if you imagine like bricks, so your PIP is the bottom brick, and your tax allowance is up here, and then your state pension's there, like that, and that's the taxable bit. So they look at it stacking up that way. Essentially, attendance allowance PIP aren't taxable, but the way they calculated it changed back in 2015, 16, something like that. So they made it so that the pension is taxable, but those things come in front of it. So yeah, basically. So it does take you up towards that taxable amount. I remember when that went through, and I was at Age UK trying to explain it to the older people, like, you've got attendance allowance, but this now also means that you've got to pay tax. So yeah, that's fun.
Had a really interesting question out actually from Brian and Brad, who said that Charlie Anderson is great and used her PIP appeal video and won. Has also done a quick answer as well, and I know this is something that is often on your mind as well, so it probably is on everyone else's too. Brian, if you get enhanced mobility PIP 12 points, should you never be seen walking without a walking aid or being pushed in a wheelchair or using a scooter? Would you be thought of as a bit dodgy? Because you can have your days when you can't put one foot in front of another. And then you have another day where you could walk for 10 minutes and have a spring in your step and think life is great, and then have to sit on a wall for 25 minutes.
Are we talking about me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that you've said to me a couple of times, crikey, someone could really think, you know, that I'm not unwell or that I don't have a disability if they saw me for this 5 minutes of my life where, thank goodness, I'm able to get out and walk about.
Yeah.
And then you might be in bed for another 2 days.
Yeah.
So I think Brian has got a similar sort of worry, and I think a lot of people probably do. And as Brad said, Brian, it could be a fluctuating condition or hidden disability. I wouldn't worry about what others think, just live life.
Well, to a certain extent, I agree with Brad. I think you have just got to live your life. What is really important is that you are very clear in your PIP application as to the variability of your condition. So obviously, if you've already got it in place, you can't go back in time and change it. But you just need to just know in your mind, did you communicate that variability of your condition? With my condition, I did. I'm not a 12-pointer. I get the lower rate on that one. I do always say, and this is important, I talk about the benefits that I receive on this channel, but my general advice is do not talk to other people about your benefits, okay? Don't let other people know what benefits you're claiming. Treat everybody with extreme prejudice when it comes to benefits, okay? It's very rare for people to make malicious reports about somebody's disability to the DWP or the local authority, but it does happen occasionally, particularly if people have a falling out or there's some kind of issue that goes on in your neighbourhood, some kind of neighbour dispute, things like that. So do try and keep that to yourself as much as possible.
Well, they haven't said that they have that. He's just using it as an example.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you know, it might not be you; it could be anybody. You know, always keep it to yourself, and definitely, you know, make sure it's always clear on the personal independence payment application as to what the variability of that is. Because then, if you're ever asked the question, well, you said you use a wheelchair and we saw you walking down the road and you were only using a stick, then you can say, I said I use a wheelchair sometimes, not all the time. But also, if you're ever called into a fraud investigation situation, the first thing you should do is watch my video on fraud investigations, and the second thing you should do is call for legal representation. Okay. But don't panic. Stick with what Brad says. And just live your life. Don't worry about the bastards wherever they are, because they might be around or they might not be, so don't worry. And by bastards I mean people, not the DWP, although some people might think that. That's up to them.
I think we've answered all of the questions.
Yes.
I think just wanted to give a shout out to everyone. Yvonne, lovely to see you, and you are welcome. Always welcome for the advice. Susan, hello. Better late than never. Anyone who we haven't said hello to, hi, and thanks for the great advice and sharing within the chat as well. It's been fabulous, and thank you for your generous donations and for putting up with my poor reading skills tonight. Not quite sure what's going on there, but yes.
Cool. So yeah, there's one little bit of news that I am going to just sort of ask to inform people about, which is that due to the kind donations that people have been making, as well as the support for the channel, which also leads to advertising revenue for me, I've been in the fortunate position of being able to invest in some new equipment and bits and bobs for the channel. So over the next few weeks we're going to start seeing some changes and hopefully some new content, new shows that we're going to be looking at doing. So we're hoping to have sort of regular health and well-being podcast where we talk to people with disabilities, who are on benefits or dealing with the health and social care system and things like that. So hopefully that should be interesting for you all as well. So look out for those kind of things and let us know if they are enjoyable to you and if you like them. And of course, as always, please do like, share and subscribe and all of those things as things come up. If you're not a subscriber, you probably are. My personal thanks to everybody who's joined this evening. Most of you tonight, I think, have been regulars.
Yeah.
Sorry if it's been a bit vague and a bit odd. I'm recovering from a very bad week of fibromyalgia. Flare up that I had. So my brain's still not 100% at the moment. If there's any questions where you want a bit more detailed advice with things, you've seen my email address go in there. So do feel free to drop me an email and I'll have a look at your questions and see if I can answer them that way. And then I can have a little bit more time to dig into the details. Also, if you're one of the benefits friends like Edward Brown and you spotted that I've said anything incorrect, or you want to say, well, I think you were wrong about that, Stu, then please do email me as well, because it's important that I'm accurate. So if I've said anything incorrect to somebody, I can always correct it at a later date. And if you've got ideas for content, for the future, or videos that you want to see, please do let me know those as well, because it's really good to get everybody's input. So finally, thanks to the Duke of Nuke for doing the moderating. He's been brilliant this evening. Thank you to Edward for providing the link to his resources. Thank you to Becky for doing the
Bonnie's arrived.
Presenting and moderating as well. And
Shall I bring Bon in? I'm not going to bring Pog in because she'll bite my face. Bring Bonnie to say hello.
Yes, so we're going to get a hello from a cat just to finish off.
Hello, real kitty. Come on. Are you going to say hello, darling? Oh, come on. Here she comes. Where's the video?
Yes, so there's Becky and the cat. So thank you to Becky and the cats for their support. And most of all, thank you to all of you for your support and for the donations as well to those who gave them. It's really appreciated. So take good care, look after yourselves, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Stay classy.